E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna and Jim, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Ginwa Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Messages of Inspirational Stories. Jim, this is kind of a tough week, but we felt like it was so important to be talking about healing traumatized hearts.
You saw me looking confused and pointing and all that. I didn't know we were live. I didn't know we were actually, live, because I didn't see the other little button come up. It was just normal, like we're sitting here before we go live. And so, I'm traumatized now.
Well, we have an awful lot to talk about, but there's so many organizations out there that can help heal people, and we're going to talk about one of them that I really think is so important is how to get back to yourself after emotional abuse beyond trauma. And that is huge. And we're going to go into the fun stuff real quick, our national days. But I just want to say this. Whoever's out there is listening, understand you're not alone.
Yeah.
Everybody, I honestly believe everybody on this planet has been through some kind of emotional abuse.
Oh, yeah. And the main thing of it is love yourself enough to let it go. We talk about love yourself over and over and over. And this just shows, some of you folks out there might say, Jim, I'm getting tired of hearing it. But the truth of it is, as long as you hold on to anything, it's kind of like voluntarily putting a shackle around your ankle.
Right.
You have to have the courage to love yourself enough to let it go.
And you have to give yourself enough grace to say, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
But I'm still okay. I'm still me. I might be a little more aware, or some things might be different, but you have to give yourself grace in order to heal and get your energy back.
Yeah. Emerson covered a real good point yesterday on Monday's show. When he was in college at Tallahassee, he did a research on rape. And he was talking about, he actually interviewed individuals that were rapists.
Ooh.
And what he found was an eye-opening experience. He found individuals says, I don't care if it's a car. I don't care if it's an oak tree that I'm chopping down. I don't care if it's a person. They don't recognize, and I'm going to use this as Emerson did yesterday, I'm going to use this, the rape victim. So we put the person in a proper perspective or category at that moment.
Correct.
At that moment. They do not, their attacker does not recognize them as being a human being. Emerson said what really happens in their minds, they have a very low self-esteem. It's all about being dominion over you, taking power and control, taking something from you because they feel worthless on the inside. It's
also hatred and rage.
Yes. And it is fueled by a sick mind.
Right.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, if you fall in that category, you need some help. If you're that kind of a person, you need some serious help. Because there's only one place that you're going to be headed to down this life and the world in the life to come, and that's a dead end street.
Right.
And I'm not going to say I feel sorry for you because I don't, but I will tell you this: you're making a major mistake in your life if you continue down that path. And for victims feel like they're a victim, realize it had nothing to do with you. And we spoke very lightly on this, and we're going to get into the fun part here in a minute. But I wanted to say this before I forgot about it. Um, a lot of people back in the old days, it was back in the old days, it's silly, back during my lifetime, a lot of people were ignorant and undereducated to the point that if a girl became a rape victim, well, what'd she do? She had to do something.
Yeah, we're going to get into that because that's a
That's
hot
yeah.
topic right there. That's a
And
hot
that
topic.
yeah, and that there, prevents a lot of people from saying, "Hey, I need to deal with this." Because all of
Right.
us, when you're dealing with, I mean, I know I said it yesterday, and as a Vietnam veteran, we didn't know. I didn't know anything about PTSD. I never
Right.
heard of it.
It was
I mean, I
shell
didn't. Yeah. I mean, because when I came home, everybody kind of looked at me like, "What's wrong with you?
Right.
What's your problem? What's you snap out of it? Get back in."
Exactly.
Get back in the
Exactly.
flow of thing. And my attitude was, why don't you people get out of my face? And
Well, we're going to jump right back into all of that in just a
yeah.
few. We're going to go into the national today. So
Mm.
obviously, I have to have this first one, Jim. This one's
All right.
mine.
All right.
National Book Lovers Day.
I knew what you was going to say. I parodied that.
I am a crazy rabid reader. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely adore reading. And,
Mm.
for whatever reason, I did have a lot going on when I first moved back to Arizona. My parents were ill, they were dying. There was a lot of things to deal with and some other things in my life. And I just kind of stopped reading. And I picked up a few books here and there. And Shazam, I got back into it, and my husband, bless his heart, he reads, but he's not a big book reader like I am. I'm on the 8th book of a series that I started, oh, maybe 2 weeks ago, and it's the last one, and I'm really kind of sad about it. And I don't know, it's only around 4 or 5,000 pages for the whole 8 books. But
Mm.
man, for me, reading is life. And
Mm-hmm.
so this was, and I like it, and I'm not one that wants to read a book on a computer. I want to hold the dang book, right? I'm old school. I want to hold that book.
She wants to turn those pages with her toes.
But so this is thanks to Johannes Gutenberg's 15th century printing press.
Mm.
Anyone, not just royalty, monks or landed gentry, can
Mm-hmm.
read books on their own,
Oh boy.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So think about this. We go back from our clay tablets way back, right? To ebooks, all throughout. And I got to tell you, for your younger viewers out there, you're lucky because we grew up with the Dewey Decimal System. That's how we
Oh yeah.
found books.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And once you got it down, you did really good.
Yeah.
But there was a long learning curve with that baby.
Mm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And you guys that don't read, that read ebooks and all that, you don't know what you're missing. Because you could take some of those books, if they're thin enough, and slide them in the seat of your pants. So if you got spanked at school, it wouldn't hurt so bad. Try that
Not
with
that
an
you know.
ebook.
Not that you know, right?
Oh no, that's what I was told by some
Uh-huh.
close friends of mine, some of my amigos.
Oh goodness.
But it's you're right. I mean, books are a wonderful source. I like to go and research books. I like to read things. I do a lot of it online because of the easiness. Also, too,
Yes.
I love YouTube. especially when I'm looking, how did they do that? Okay, wait a minute. Let me stop that. Let me pause it. Let me get over here and do this. Especially when I'm trying to do something on a program on a computer or something. But it's so important, and I like what you said there, because Gutenberg, he really opened up the world to people to be able to read topics of, and subjects to interest them, and of course open up the world for authors to write stories.
Right.
You know what else today is?
What is that?
National Rice Pudding Day.
Well, there's Jim with the food again.
Yep. I like rice pudding. And, in here, I'm reading about this. It says, of course, it says, from our childhood on up, rice pudding has been a staple in our diets from time to time, and it has. And it is. It says it's made with a base of rice cooked in milk, added with sugar or syrup or honey or whatever.
Right. What they had on
cultures.
hand.
Yeah, different cultures, they used whatever they had on hand. And when I started reading here, of course, each region has its own unique take on the dish. Some add nuts and spices like nutmeg and cinnamon. Now they're talking.
Right.
We're talking downtown now. And the history of it, I mean, it goes way back. I mean, all the way back to the beginning of time. But rice became a very good staple food. It's a very healthy food, and people were able to eat rice and also enjoy rice as a dessert. And rice become cheaper. Rice grains became cheaper in the 18th and 19th century, and this allowed access to the general public, who could now enjoy rice with their regular meals as well as rice pudding.
Right.
And it's really a treat for me. It really is. I enjoy, because I'm a foodaholic. I really am.
Well, today, the last one we have for today is National Women's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is it's a South African holiday that's celebrated every year on a weekday. And women have had a long history of oppression.
Oh yeah.
But every fight, and I use that word every time they step up the game, right? So we have more rights. We're one step closer to freedom and equality. So education played an important role in this as well. But this goes back on August 9th, 1956, there was a staged march in the Union buildings over Pretoria. Over 20,000 women of all races attended the march in order to protest against the Urban Acres Act of 1950, its amendments. That law required all South Africans defined as Black to carry an internal passport that served to maintain segregation, control urbanization, and manage migrant labor during
apartheid. During apartheid, yeah.
Yep.
I'm just wondering, of course, I know what it says here. I'm just kind of, it talks about to carry an internal passport. I wonder what the heck that was. I mean, was that some type of a brand they had on, a mark or something? I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. I mean, it just amazes how this is a classic example of how ignorant people who do not realize that everyone is created equal, male or female. It doesn't matter. You have inalienable rights given to you by the Creator, and yet they want to label. In our world today, we got people want to label people. They want to categorize people. They want to
dissect.
Name. Yeah, and that is so
compartmentalize.
Yeah, and that's just as bad as back 50, 100 years ago. If a lady got raped and someone said, well, it's probably her fault. She brought it on herself. Look the way she's been dressing lately,
Right.
I mean, and that's the same bonehead mentality that only ignorance can fuel.
Exactly.
And a lot of girls, I mean, from what I understand, I haven't known, not that I know of, I haven't known anybody that's been raped, but
from what I've read, the first thing they want to do is just get in the shower and cleanse themselves, which is the worst thing they should do because they wash away a lot of evidence.
Right. It's the DNA.
DNA, yeah, that was before DNA. So, I mean, and the second thing they do after that, Donna, they would just want to be quiet about it and deal with it and maybe pretend that it didn't happen or maybe it would go away.
Right.
And that's not life. That's not the world of reality.
No.
I mean, you gotta have the courage to face something. And again, as we were covering yesterday, and I'm gonna let you get into some of the topics you want to talk to because you got some great information. Realize that the hatred, and that's what it is. It's fueled with hatred. It's not about sex.
Right.
It's about hatred. And it's kind of like when in the prison system, sometimes when men will abuse other men, it's not about sex. It's about power and control. Think about that. And here again, it's about power and control. That's how pitifully weak they are between the ears.
Well, I can remember growing up, Jim, and there'd be rape cases that were being discussed and on TV, and the lawyers would be grueling to the women. And I have to say, I do not know if this is still a common practice, but they would be, they would say it was somebody my age, and they would say, okay, so, how long have you been sexually active? I mean, according to our investigation, XYZ years or whatever, but that has no bearing on anything,
It's none of their business.
No, and it has but that's how they portrayed it. That to help somebody who needs help, who has hurt somebody, they have hurt them. They have hurt them physically. They have hurt them mentally. They have hurt them emotionally. And, that's a part, I mean, all of it really gets my, turns the flame torch on. Or flamethrower, however you want to look at it. But
hand grenade.
But when somebody talks about your character in such a way, Jim, think about that. Well, geez, you go to the grocery store in shorts. Yeah, I live in Arizona. I go in a tank top too. It's hot.
Yeah.
It is hot here.
Sure.
But you know what? That does not have a sign on us that says, "Hey, free to rape us," or etc.
Using that analogy about the attorney, if a person goes to a bank and a bank robber comes in and shoots up the place, and they get hit by a bullet or something, and they survive. I mean, look how foolish the attorney would say, well, how many times you've been coming to the bank here?
Right.
It's the same thing.
It is.
It's just a wrong place or wrong time, and you're having to deal with an evil, wicked mind.
Right.
That's it. I mean, it's kind of like, but no attorney would dream of asking that question. But, I know what you mean. I've heard that question. I've heard of that question being asked. I'm going to put it like that. But thankfully, with DNA, that clears up a lot of that old school thinking.
It does.
It really does.
And I'm sure there's probably still some of that out there, unfortunately. And hopefully that can get a barrier broke down so that doesn't have to happen. But Jim, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the bottom line is this. You can't help how someone thinks. If an attorney is bent on getting his guilty client off, that is something he's going to have to live with. You don't have to live with that. Because do not let an attorney determine how happy you're going to be or how you're going to define yourself. Because he or she, that attorney, they are not worth it.
Right.
All they've done is trade the morals, the values and ethics of their soul for a fistful of dollars.
Right. Right.
Now, I'm not saying about not give the person fair trial. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying when they're trying to get them off at all costs, because a lot of attorneys, they do that. I mean, that's
Right.
a game for them.
Right.
And I've been involved with a couple of attorneys, and I just, I hope everybody goes to heaven. Let me just say this, but I also hope, in the infinite wisdom of the universe, they'll put them way over yonder somewhere, where I'll never see them or have to deal with them, and that'd be fine with me.
Right.
I
And
will not complain.
it's really hard to get back to yourself after
Mhm.
any kind of emotional abuse.
Oh yeah.
And the one thing that people have found out through time and talking with people and people getting help, of course, is that they've lost the things that they've lost from the trauma of their partner's betrayal is themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? That they have, they learn to love themselves again after any kind of emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
When people are emotionally traumatized, again, that comes back to power. They want power over you. And whether it's male or female, doesn't matter. They want power over you. And that is a sad, sad thing. Because, I look at it like this. I am really super strong in certain areas. That's my power, right? That's what I do best. But I can promise you, my husband doesn't get upset about it. He knows that that's my area that I shine. So there's no power, and vice versa. So we have no power play with each other. Because to do that, then we would be depleting who we are as individuals and who we are that we love in the other person. Did I say that correctly, Jim? I'm not sure I got it out right.
Sounded good to me.
Okay.
It really did.
Okay.
And look at many people in their lives that have overcome, trauma on all fronts.
Right.
Yesterday we talked about the charity that we have here. The home, not the Healing Acres Never Again.
Yes.
Excuse me. Got my throat cleared there.
Charlene's.
Healing Acres. Yeah, Charlene's. And the first time I met Charlene, I was very impressed with her because she's a very beautiful young lady. But what gets me, she's got a very beautiful smile and there's a light in her eyes.
Oh, her heart is so big.
Yeah. She'll help. She loves helping us here at the TV show. She really does. Bless her heart. And hopefully she'll be with us tomorrow or later on this week. Get to feeling better from the procedure she had. Bless her heart. And but I had just had her on the show. This is back during the lockdown when everybody just had Zoom and Facebook Live, and we were now, had something to do other than sit around with our toenails grow. And so she was talking about her life, and I knew nothing about her being the victim of incest from her dad. And I'm thinking, oh man, how can a guy do that? I mean, how can a dad do that? I mean, that's what I'm sitting there spinning around in my mind. And how her aunt kind of knew something was going on and got her in touch with nature to plant plants and to plant a tree. And it really helped her. And then she went through an abusive relationship, a very abusive marriage. And I think she was a rape victim too. And just go from clam bam to wham. And she met with Ken Nathan, and I shared Ken's story yesterday very briefly. His family, he was born and raised in India. His family are from India, and his dad got a job offer in Australia, so they moved the family in Australia. And things didn't work out well for his dad there. And his dad was working at a phone company, I think he said. And he had gotten off work about 9 o'clock at night. He was on the bus going home. He gets off the bus, and there at the bus stop, some individuals grab him who he did not know. They never found out who these men were. They drug him into an alley. They doused his father with gasoline and set him on fire. And fortunately, his dad did live, but the horrific impact that had on all the family. And dealing with the rage, think about that. I mean, that's perfectly normal. That's perfectly natural. And if someone did that to my family, I mean, I would not want to be downrange of me if I knew who that was. Okay,
Right.
I'll just say that. But together, they let the hate and everything go.
Right.
And they came together and they created the Healing Acres Never Again. It's got chapters across the United States, throughout the United States. It's got chapters in Australia, Africa, and over in Europe. So it's growing. And it's a safe place. And that's what it takes. It takes someone that's been there, done it. They've got skin in the game. They have love in their heart. And they're not going to let whatever happened to them define them or rob them of their life. That's important, isn't it, Donna?
It is. We carry so much baggage with us on a good day, let alone when we are in some time of abusive situation. You know, we as women, did these pants fit me this way when I wore them last time? Have I gained weight? You know, we have all this baggage that goes on in our head,
Really?
right? And I think that when an emotional abusive situation, been there, it takes, the worst thing, Jim, is it takes a piece of light out of us, right?
Yeah.
It chips away at how we feel, our confidence, our beauty. Oh my gosh, this one's huge. Our self-worth. That's huge. Our self-worth. And so understanding that the first thing you have to do is, obviously you out of that relationship, we hope, but get help and understand how there's so many things that we need to do. And getting counseling by a professional is one of the best things, obviously, that anybody can do, because it impacts women or men in just devastating ways, but in different ways. So whether it's, you suffer physically, sexually, emotionally, spiritually, betrayal is betrayal, right? So sometimes the things that we love to do, we stop doing.
You
Think
stop
about
living.
that. You stop living. You have let them win when this happened. And whether that's, somebody has traumatized you in some way, when we stop doing the things that once brought us joy and put a spring in our step and made our hearts smile, when we stop doing that because of the crap someone else has done to us, we have just caged ourselves. Think about that. We have put ourselves back in a cage. Might be free of the relationship, but if you let them take away the things that make you you, you have put yourself in a cage.
You certainly have. You certainly have. And you've given them a chance to own you. That's one of the things that just really,
Right.
really gets to me, is that you give them a chance to own you. They continue to control you long after, the event happened or the
Right.
events
Long
happened.
after the damage is done.
Yes, exactly. And Donna, when it comes to hate, hate is a self and a soul destroyer
Right.
on all fronts. It is impossible for you to hate anything and be happy at the same time. So the question is, do you want to
Back.
hate or do you want to be happy? It's kind of like the question they asked us guys: you want to be happy or want to be right? Okay, well, but the main thing of it is hatred and happiness do not coexist. I mean, it's either one or the other. And
Right.
if hate is consuming you, it's like a fire. It can never be, it can
It's
never
a fire
be
that can
quenched,
never be extinguished.
and it can't be quenched.
Right.
It just goes on and on and on. It's just kind of like the love of money or the greed for people that want more, more, more.
Well,
If they
and
won the lottery every day, they wouldn't be happy.
right, and the opposite's true.
Mhm.
The more you love, and the more you let love in, the more it grows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Right.
yeah.
It
I got
multiplies.
I got to tell the story when I was doing my research because when I lost a beloved dog, I mean, this was probably the one of the top three dogs I've ever had in my life. We were buddies, and as he was laying there, he had pneumonia and he was breathing his last. And from the time I knew he was sick to the time he was gone, like 48 hours. So timing was real short. And I remember petting him, and for some reason I said it's okay to go home.
Mhm.
And I don't know why I said that. And it started bothering me. But when it bothered me, it was for a reason. Because being bothered like that means I'd have to research it. I got to find an answer. Why is this bothering me? Because I said it's okay to go home. And I
Right.
started researching, and yes, you don't have to worry about your pets going to heaven. You better worry about YOU. Your Chiarchus may not get off the ground.
Right.
But my point being, in my studies, there was actually a pretty well educated person, very knowledgeable of the Bible, but they did not know what they thought they knew. They made the comment that, well, that God would not allow us to have our pets in heaven because we'd be showing love to them as opposed to God. And to prove that that is 100% incorrect, you let any parent come home with a puppy, give it to the kids, and look at the kids out in the backyard running and playing with that puppy, and the puppy licking the kid's face and seeing the joy and jubilee those kids are having, and the puppy and them loving each other. That just vibrates love from you
Right.
because you love seeing it. You would not stand there and say, hey, they shouldn't be loving that dog like that. They need to love me. That shows you how narrow-minded and ignorant we can get when we
Right.
try to put the creator in a box.
Right.
And the same is true when you're dealing with trauma and things like that. Don't try to solve this by yourself because there's other
Oh,
people out there who will help
no,
you.
no.
Uh,
Because sometimes when, uh, it's such a healing process
mhm,
to get it out. It's sort of like,
yeah.
you know, um, when you talk about your experience, whether it's in, your writing, it's a support group with a trauma informed,
Mhm,
professional, creating art that maybe expresses your trauma, meditation, prayer, physical work, and exercise. I
mhm,
know I've been there. I'm one of those people. So when I am hurt on an emotional basis, I will start doing Hercules type events. Oh, okay. Well, I couldn't move that last week, but by gosh, I can this week because I'm trying to heal, right? So
mhm,
all that has to go somewhere. So,
mhm.
something that was kind of heavy a week or two ago, well, that's not a problem today. It's done out in the garbage, right? But we all, what I'm saying is we all find different ways to heal and go forward. But in that process is so important to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Know that it's not going to be an overnight journey. Oh my gosh, Jim, there's no way.
Not at all. Not at all. It's yesterday I shared a little bit about, me serving in Vietnam and all that and the way it was, was when I came back. And I ran into a group of people, Vietnam veterans, who were talking. And I walked in just kind of like curious on what they're going to say. And this was about 79 or 80. I came back from Nam in 1970. And here sat this long-haired guy, tattoos all over his arms, jaws kind of sunk in like that. And I'm looking at, you could tell this guy had been run through the ringer washer about 29 times. I mean, he had been there and been through it, drug abuse and everything. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I mean, and I'm thinking, this dope addict, he ain't going to teach me anything. It's some kind of a rap group. I need to get that. I got to get out of here while I still got what little bit of sanity I got. And then he said something that only another Vietnam veteran could say to a Vietnam veteran. And he says, remember one thing. Everything you did over there was not an act of hatred. It was an act of survival. And it just really woke me up. Mm-hmm. And I did not realize because, the guilt you carry with you, the things that, that happened and you had no control over.
Correct.
But you feel guilty about it.
Right. And that gets transferred in abuse.
Oh, yeah.
Right. We feel guilty. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any control. Right. Mm-hmm. But the control and the power is within you. And when you can get the help you need, holy cow, having your life back, cheesy Pete, that is everything because they can't win. Right?
Yeah, because about a year after I heard that was within a year, I had drank all the way through the 70s. And, you drink, 12 beers a night, you're drinking quite a bit. Okay.
Right.
There's no way around it. In fact, I tease people after I quit drinking. Budweiser threatened to sue me because their stock fell for some reason. But after I heard that and I realized that things started making sense to me and I started thinking with a more clear mind rather than the guilt mind. And on January the 1st, 1981, I quit drinking. I just quit and didn't about face and walked away. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll still have a beer or two today, but nothing like what I did back in those days.
Right.
I mean, and one of my buddies was telling me, he says, oh, Jim, you shouldn't quit drinking. You ain't got a problem. I said, well, I tell you what, my man, I said, I work 8 hours. I drink 8 hours. I only get about 3 hours sleep. I'm losing 5 hours a day and I'm too dumb to figure it out. But that's about the size of it when you work like that and you drink like that. I mean, you're not going to get proper rest. It's a hard life. And it's a dead-end street. And I didn't realize that, but I didn't know where else to turn. Right. My point being is that that Vietnam veteran helped me open the door to a brighter light. So someone who has been there and walked a mile in your shoes, they can say things to you that I can't. Or Donna may not be able to.
Correct.
That's why, search out someone that's been there. They know what it's like. They know how you feel. Don't go this alone, please, because it's a dead-end street. It really is.
When we do things alone too often, we get lost in the emotional state we're in. Mm-hmm. Right? And so the healing... and it takes time. Everybody is different. There's no right, there is no wrong.
Mhm.
But when we don't have the proper tools and we try and heal on our own, a lot
Mm.
of times that healing process can take so much longer
Mhm.
and it can be so much harder because those support groups, when you're ready for that, that's what they're there for, to support you, to love you. So, I'll give an example. And we did a show about this, about how uh, drugs affect the whole family. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
mhm. Well, one of my children had a problem with it. And in rehab, the guy was talking, it was a big open group, and he was talking all about it. And finally, my son had got so angry, and he looked at the group leader or whatever they called themselves, and he told them that he was full of himself. He said, "You've never done anything a day in your life." He said, "You have no idea what we live through, what we're doing."
Hmm. That's right.
None. And all of, because they could feel it. And so everybody's
Mhm.
sitting there.
Sure.
It's like, "Is that true?" He's like, "Well, yeah, I mean, but I've gone to school." And they're like, "Well, that's great. But that, that a book application
Mhm.
doesn't tell you what we're going through on a physical level. You'll never
No.
understand that. So we don't
Mm-mm.
have a communication here. And that's what I'm trying to point out. When you get with people who have been there, who have that training,
Mm.
and you're in a support group where you're safe, that's
Mhm.
where some real healing can begin.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to get in there with someone that's been down that road.
Right,
I mean, they've got skin in the game. They've got emotion in there.
right,
And when you talk about, there's 6 self-care tips there, Donna. We were going to talk about that a little bit. I think I was going to mention one or two. Recognize the effects of trauma and what you're going through.
right,
That is so critical because you're going to have trouble sleeping. Of course, some of these symptoms apply for everything except an ingrown toenail, I guess. But really, you're going to have trouble sleeping. You're not going to rest well because you're going to feel deep down inside that it's your fault. You're going to feel
right,
guilty, guilt that will not allow good sleep. You will experience panic attacks and anxiety. Sometimes you'll turn to substance abuse. That's what I did in the 70s. I turned to alcohol. When I came back, and eating disorders, well, I still, just what we talked about rice. I'll always have a eating disorder. I mean, that's about it. But also, too, folks, you can experience flashbacks in your mind.
hmm,
That in itself is a living hell. Granted, I've not been what you've been through, but I'm telling you, flashbacks is a living hell. It
right,
really is. And the feelings of self hate and low esteem, sometimes people blame themselves.
right,
Like we talked earlier about, if you go to the bank to cash a check, a bank robber comes in there and he's shooting a place up and you get hit with a bullet, would you hate yourself for going to the bank? You were at the wrong place at the wrong time. That doesn't mean that you should be, not go to the bank or anything. And also, people have a fear about having relationships with other people. And that's sad because we all, we're all social creatures and we crave
right.
love. We really do. And the last one is suicidal thoughts. Oh, goodness. I've experienced suicide in my family twice. One was a cousin when I was about 12 or 13, and the second one was my son-in-law. And I can tell you how that makes you feel,
Right.
the guilt. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? And that is, we've all been there, as Donna said at the beginning of the show. So therefore, we need to release that guilt because we know deep down inside of our heart that we would not have put ourselves in danger. And we know good and well, in
Right.
like in suicide case, we would have been there if we'd known that.
Well, and I think one of the other things that we tend to do is when we're trying to figure out life now after, trying to get our life back after any kind of abuse,
Yeah.
there's going to be people in your life who obviously don't know about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to go into detail with them.
It's none of the
Perfectly
business.
okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those same people, when they're say, "Well, gee, Donna, are you okay? I noticed that you've been acting a little different lately." It's okay to say, "Look, I have just gone through some pretty traumatic stuff lately, and I'm just trying to get a grip on it. But
Mm-hmm.
I so appreciate you caring enough about me to ask me." That
Mm-hmm.
way, you're telling them there was something traumatic, but you're
Mm-hmm.
also shutting it down.
Yeah.
That the door is not open for them to talk about it. And if they
Right.
do, and they say, "Well, oh my gosh, Donna, what happened?" Simple. You just
Yeah.
say, "Some
Mm-hmm.
things happen and I don't want to discuss it."
Yeah. Just say, I'm not at the point now where
I'm
we even want to discuss it, and let it
right,
go.
right,
And anybody that's really your true friend, family, or friend, doesn't matter. They'll understand. They'll leave you alone. They'll give you
right.
space. They really will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Super important. So, be prepared that people are going to be trying to reach out and help
Mm-hmm.
you and talk to you because they notice that something's wrong. They
Mm-hmm.
notice that your normal bubbly self is not bubbly anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So be prepared
Yeah.
for that.
I'm not a subject matter expert on this at all. And but Donna, something just came to my mind. I want to ask your opinion on this. You know how we talk about masterminds and all that, and we get together and we share ideas. What if two people who were who went through the same thing, excuse me, and they decided they're going to team up and they're going to become buddies and go through counseling together, or at least be there supportive of each other to help each
Support
other to
buddies,
research. Yes, that would be
right?
critical, wouldn't it?
It is really important to have somebody
Hmm.
who you can lean
Yeah.
on and have support with.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's somebody who's gone the same thing, gone through it the same as you, or somebody who is that one in a million that nothing is going to ever tear your friendship apart, right?
Hmm.
But support is critical because
Yeah.
we are not creatures made to be alone,
Hmm.
especially during time of trauma, especially
Hmm.
during time of emotional um, upheaval in our life, because
Hmm.
it affects everything, guys. I mean, I know when I've gone through things, I will drop weight so quick it'll make your head spin. I have been known to drop 20 pounds in 3 weeks.
Hmm.
Probably not the best way to lose weight, but it's
Hmm.
not because literally, I'm like, well, look at me. I literally couldn't eat. I literally couldn't eat. Every time I tried to eat, it didn't stay where it was supposed to go. Let's just nicely put it that way.
Hmm.
So, having emotional help, a support, Jim, that is just brilliant.
Hmm.
And if you don't have anybody, a lot of places where you will seek help
Hmm.
have those support groups when
Yes.
you're ready. When
Hmm.
you're ready.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, because you'll know when you're ready, and pick someone that you got a good rapport with, and because that is so critical in your healing. It really is. Think of it just like when you need physical therapy in the hospital or something like that. You're gonna have somebody come by, they come around, they're gonna help you, and that's for physical support. Well, you're going to need emotional support as you go through this. So accept that, and most importantly, be receptive of that.
Right.
And Donna, there's been a lot of people And we know a lot of people. I was going to mention one, Chevy Chase, for example, because I always liked Chevy Chase. He's a great comedian and all that. But Chevy's a good example. And he was growing up, he had a very abusive stepfather. He got beat a lot. He got locked into his closet for hours. And even though Chevy had a high intelligence, how do you think that affected him in school?
Oh, probably plummeted his grades.
Yes. And then the stepfather, that just put salt on the wound because the stepfather knew that that Chevy was a smart kid,
Right.
but his
Put
grades are
fire on the
horrible.
gasoline.
And so now he figures
Gasoline on the fire.
more corrections will solve that problem.
Right.
And all it does is put fuel on the fire. But Chevy, for years, he masked that. And I understand that. I understand what he did there because that's what I used to do. I used to
Right.
joke around a lot, and that way I didn't have to talk about anything I didn't want to talk about.
Right.
It was my escape route. Bill
Right.
Heinrich talks about that in his book. He went down the same route. And he was able to camouflage that and hide that. But deep down inside, he knew that that was still part of his life growing up.
Correct.
The trauma that he had to deal with and live with. And the point of it is, he wrote a book to release it. Now, your avenue might be to just, have people to talk to, have people pray over you, whatever it might take. Your avenue might be to write a book about it. But the main thing is, regardless of what you do, make sure you release it. Let it go.
I was just going to talk about that.
And you got a trauma case right there.
This one is, well, she's so dadgum strong too.
Mm-hmm.
But writing about it, talking about it, when we hold things in, there's something, and I don't know scientifically, folks, what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I do know this. When we hold in things that really hurt, and we bottle it up and push it away, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later. It has that snowball effect, right?
Yep. That pop's going to,
right? And when it blows hard. There is healing. There is healing in telling your story. There is healing in owning the power, because when you tell your story, there is somebody out there who may be going through the same thing you went through. And they're now looking at you saying, wow, look at them own their power. Right? Nobody is entitled to strip you of that for anything. Your dignity, your power, your own self-love. Give yourself plenty of grace, but find what works for you. Because getting beyond the trauma and healing, wow, that is everything.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people think about what was the number one song for us Vietnam veterans in Vietnam. And of course, me over there was They Buy the Animals, We Got to Get Out of This Place If We Ever Do, That was a very popular song. Another one was Silver Wings. But
right.
One of the songs that was very popular with the Vietnam veterans, especially me, it's never said much about it. And that was a 1969 hit by Joe South. It was a number one song. And the lyrics go, walk a mile in my shoes before you criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes. And I'm going like, yeah, man, sing it, Joe. Yeah, that's my song, because it was something I could grab onto and cling to and relate to. And in your hour of need, you're going to need something you can grab onto that's going to give you that anchor that you need.
That's going to give you the hope and the reason to keep going.
Oh yeah, because without hope, it game over. On all fronts, it really is. And we're going to be back tomorrow, aren't we, Donna?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay.
All week.
all week. Boy, she's a slave driver. I need some therapy now. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Our time is gone, and we just want to thank you so much for tuning in. Please share this show with others. Be sure and go to our YouTube channel, Messages of Inspirational Stories. We have a very simple link to our website. I get my tongue going here. Our TV show.live. We made it real simple rather than the messages of inspiration. It just redirects there. So we wanted to make it simple for you. And that was one of Emerson's great suggestions. And
Brilliant.
yeah, our TV show.live, because it's our TV show. And honey, we is live.
Right?
At least physically. I don't know about mentally. That's a challenge for me. But most importantly, please, please, please share this with someone that you might know that could benefit from the message that we shared yesterday on the show. And we're going to be back tomorrow. Of course, this whole week is dedicated to this topic because it's a very important topic. It cannot be swept under the rug.
Right.
It's kind of like this is going to be a horrible analogy. And it's a good thing it's the end of the show because otherwise you'll pull, It's kind of like the girl gets pregnant and her mother knows she's pregnant, don't want to tell the dad. And why is she wearing a coat in the summertime? I mean, it's not going to go away. That's a horrible analogy, I know, but it's got to be faced. So have the courage to face it. Don't live in fear. Don't run from it.
Right. This is about you.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, you're headed down a dead-end street that's dark and has no exits. Thank you so much. Be sure and love yourself. Donna, that's the most important thing we can say, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Love yourself first and give yourself grace.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bless you. We hope that you have a wonderful evening or a day whenever you see this. Most importantly, Donna and I, we hope that you and your loved ones are healthy, happy, and safe. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.